All right, welcome back, race fans. After a little bit of a break, we're back into racing action.
Back into podcast action.
That's it. So Lars Tribus here, sitting with the GM of the Monster Energy Pro Downhill Series, Clay Harper. Had a little bit of a sabbatical for the 2025 season. We're getting ready for back-to-back rounds at Solitude and Big Bear. Lots staying the same. So we still have all of our industry sponsors on board with Monster Energy and our presenting partner, Continental Tires, still holding the flags for the series.
Making everything possible.
Yep. Absolutely. We have Fox, SR Suntour, Yoshimura, Thule, and as well as some industry support. Clay, you want to touch on our industry support partners?
Looking down the line, right? We got ODI, a lot to talk about with ODI always. ODI plates, and it's cool that phrase has caught on now. I hear everybody calling them. I think that people outside of our series are going to call red plates, ODI red plates now, kind of become a brand. Vans, got the shoes, the hookup for our crew. Thank you, Vans. Can-Am, I mean, everybody wants to drive our Can-Am. I've been spending a little time in the break off-roading with the Can-Am around the farm. We've done a few trips, just tons of fun with that. And then we're still developing, relationships with Road to Recovery and the On-Track School. These are evolving industry alliances and partners and stuff, and we say more to talk about. It's such a process, like all this stuff, right? Forming the partnerships, presenting them properly, talking about them. It's like, man, we could do a podcast just on that. So,
absolutely.
But we have to shout out those guys at the beginning of this one because none of this would be possible.
Yeah, and I mean, the series really got legs last year in its first season, and it's taken a lot of life, and it wouldn't be possible without all of them.
Would not be possible. And I actually went out and I spent some time in California and Utah. Spent some time with some of our partners, visited Monster, got to go to the Monster warehouse in California, which is a sight to behold. It's like 1 million square feet or something like that. Got to go look at some of their event inventory, like trussing and things like that. They lend us a lot of hardware. So like as you see our setup start to evolve, Monster is responsible for a lot of that. Also visited Fox HQ, which one of my favorite places. Anybody who's been to the Fox store, that's located right in the Fox building, designed by Pete Fox, like back in the early 2000s, and it's like an amazing building. So if you have a chance, check it out.
Yeah, very cool. So we've got a lot to cover today, Clay. We've obviously had a really successful round 2 at Mountain Creek Bike Park in New Jersey. So we'll touch on some of that and just kind of give a quick recap on it. And then shortly thereafter, we'll be covering the event at Solitude.
Yeah, get into the future.
First for this venue.
Old business first before new business, right? Let's talk about Mountain Creek. So Mountain Creek, right? It's such an old venue in the U.S. I think we've said this before. I think it's the longest, standing contiguous, downhill venue in the U.S. I mean, we started the U.S. Open there in 2003. I think it's held a national level race every year since then. So,
yeah. And the park began 98, I believe, 99.
99 with IntraWest, yeah. And it was then 2 years of that, and then it was Diablo, which is where this all started. There's probably something on the wall in here that says Diablo.
I've got some old hardware, some of those really cool chainsaw carved metals with the big heavy chains.
Yeah, dude, we get asked to bring back the chainsaw metals, but just a side note on that, at the time, that was really easy and free. I think it would cost a huge percentage of our budget to give everybody custom chainsaw art now. So the track was basically the same layout as last year. Few changes, but a lot of just, I would say, updates within the same corridor. So we did some changes to the whoop section, some changes coming into that. George and his team took out one tree that was a nuisance last year at the end of the rock garden, which opened up a whole new line. Trying to think of anything else that was really would stand out that you might see in the race show. I think the biggest change is two of them. When you at the end of Frog Pond, which is that section before you come out into the woods to the main finish, is that got so fast. That wound up being the highlight. That made all the vital raw videos. That did everything, and that was, another spot where another tree that was kind of deciding the line there was removed, and just opened it up and created this step down opportunity that everybody couldn't pull it. It was a pretty big one. I actually saw some really crazy crashes in there too, when the rain came, and then the next part of the track that was different is we fully eliminated one of the turns in the old snowboard half pipe, the super pipe, which sped that up. Yeah. So I think it made for a more exciting track. I think it drove times down a little bit. We had slightly shorter times, but I think the track performed well. But then the rain came.
Yeah, and I mean, that obviously threw some curveballs into the mix, but I was, couldn't have been more wrong. At the beginning of the weekend, I thought, all right, we got a lot of rain. It's going to space the times out. You know, we saw some incredibly tight racing at Rock Creek, and I think I made a statement at the beginning of Mountain Creek weekend. It's not going to be like that. The times are going to be a little bit more spaced between riders, and I couldn't have been more wrong. You know, again, testament to the riders, but holy smokes, was it tight racing. Yeah,
and you know, I said I wasn't going to say this, but you and I did a little discussion on the hot seat at the end, and we're actually kind of, we jumped the gun on a little bit of our analysis of that race on the spot on the day there, and like how that race was actually won. And then, you know, as we looked deeper at it, you could see that the place where the winners made up the time, you know, where Kaylee and Gwin made up the time, is like, it's almost like it was in the finish line sprint. Like it literally was in the last couple hundred yards of the race, and it was really crazy when we went back and analyzed it. But to me, the story of the closeness though is Chris Grice, right? Like, man, I might have bet $100 halfway through his run that he was about to win. You know, like, it just seemed like he had it.
I mean, Aaron got the Whole Shot Award, the SR Sun Tour Whole Shot Award. So, but I mean, you're talking a couple hundredths of a second. I think, yeah, we're talking three tenths of a second actually. And then Chris reeled it back in and took the top spot for the next couple splits.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the last split where Aaron just really laid it down, and it was really cool talking to them after the race. And I think Aaron knew he got a little rowdy in a couple spots, and he just really like cracked the throttle towards the end, and that's what did it for him.
Yeah, that track had a very weird finish. Not weird, but different. Like where you come down and it is a non-berm turn. It's like an off-camber, rutted left that in qualifying, you know, the day before had been, well, actually it was 2 days before, we can talk about that in a second, but had been really a nuisance. Like, I keep saying that word for parts of the track, but it took people out. Like, we had a handful of people who lost their full qualifying run in the last 100 feet of the track because it's an off-camber grass turn. And so what that says about, you know, Kaylee and Gwin reeling it back in what arguably is one of the hardest places on the track to go fast. But that's racing, right? Like, you have to have one little edge to get those tenths and hundredths of a second. And I don't think when people were analyzing the track and walking and practicing, I don't know if anybody gave so much credence to the last 100 feet of the track. Yeah, right? Like, I don't know if they dissected it the way those guys did.
Yeah, I actually did on my end because that's where I was standing, right? I'm in the finish line crowd, so that's all I get to watch all day. And I could see rider after rider in seating. Mm-hmm. I saw probably 2 to 3 dozen riders throw their seating runs away and like literally just land on their face.
We saw some 360s.
Yeah, land on their face and do like the best home.
Luckily nobody got hurt there because it was soft and grass. But yeah.
Best home plate slides in mountain biking history. I think Shelly even made the final edit with hers.
Shelly's was good.
So
she was literally giggling as it happened too.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, shit.
I knew that was going to be a critical spot, and watched a lot of riders actually process it. I could see the ones that put thought into that last like 30 feet of track.
Yeah.
And when you watch the women's race in particular, Kaylee won in the last 50 feet of the race.
Horsepower too.
She set up in that right on top of that last little knoll, came all the way across,
like going
all the way to the
so
inside.
Land the jump, hit the compression, start your setup for the finish line.
And she was setting up for the finish line. She
probably got to think about that on the lip of the jump to be landing in the right corridor.
Yeah. Pre-gamed the whole thing. And then she just had nothing but horsepower in that last section and really lit it up. And when you look at the women's results, I mean, Bella was leading the race up until the last split. And the times that separated them, I mean, they're so tight I need my glasses. 0.022, right?
English chocolate. The guy over there with glasses doing the camera work.
Yeah, 0.022 is what Kaylee edged Taylor out by 0.022. Just super, super impressive.
It was cool.
Taylor was up by a tenth of a second in the last split, and it was literally the finish line, that last little segment.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, only another 0.3 of a second back was Bella. So despite mud and changing courses and, you know, we still saw racing that came down to tenths of a second.
Yeah, the men's side the same. You know what I mean? Virtually the same story. Like that was what was consistent about our post-race analysis, is that it was super similar in both races. So you got, just to reiterate, Kaylee Skelton and Erin Gwin taking the wins, and both, you know, in our notes here, both number 7s on the day. Lucky 7s. It was a really interesting thing on an unlucky weekend because, you know, it's worth mentioning, we had to cancel the race on Saturday due to lift problems. You know, the lift went down, the chairlift went down, situation out of our control. We held like a, what do they call it in the political game? Like a caucus. We brought all the Group A riders and we stood up on top of that rock wall and we had 100+ athletes sitting there. We all decided like it was better for us to push the race to Sunday morning. We did a vote on the time. And the consensus was like, get on the track at 7:30 in the morning, which is crazy. So we had athletes on the track 7:30 Sunday morning, racing by what? We were racing by 8:30 or something. I forget what it was. And completely changed the dynamic. You had some interesting conversations with some of the West Coast athletes, like what a disadvantage, right? Like now you're technically, they're racing at 4:30 in the morning, or 5:30 in the morning, you know? So
some of them had to change flights too, you know, like.
Kaylee barely got to stick around for the press conference. She was like in the car, gone. So
Maylee Lena had to change a flight, call her professor, have him reschedule a final exam, you know, like just there was a lot of...
School's important, racing's importanter.
Yeah, importanter, exactly.
With that though, it did give the track a little chance to dry out. And I think that was an underlying, like, some of the smarter people, like some of the people with more racecraft when we were having that meeting, like Nico, I heard Nico, guys, track will be drier. Who cares if you got to get up in the morning? It'll be a better race. So it was good. I'm glad that we went through that process. I think it was really good for us to give our athletes that voice in it too. You don't always get the chance to do that. So I enjoyed that process, as stressful as it was at the time. Then with that lucky 7s, the 7 number plates, Kaylee got to pick her permanent plate in the series because she finally got her race win. You know, we've talked about it. She had a rough year last year, a lot of bad luck. So like to go from bad luck to like winning on lucky 7s and all that, like it was pretty cool. And she right there on the spot took 7 as her permanent plate, which, you know, I don't know, personally that was one of the highlights of the weekend. And
she also took over the lead for the series for 2025. So she's going into Solitude with a good headspace. She just had a really strong performance at national champs in enduro discipline.
Yeah, crazy.
So she's busy, she's putting in the work, and she's going into round 3 in that top spot, just a couple points ahead of Taylor Ostgaard. So
yeah, there's what do we have, like a 8-point difference in that. And then to look at the pro men, Aaron, you know, really cementing his lead there, but still only, 8 points there too. So 8 points separating first and second in the point standings in both men and women pro, which, you know, with us being only 2 out of 5 races in, I think there's still a lot to talk about there. We don't, you know, on this podcast, we're not going to go deep into the point standings right now. I think after round 4, we'll probably really dissect the point standings because we're at round 3 back-to-back with round 4 back-to-back weeks. It's going to be pretty tight just from a time standpoint. We actually have a technical issue on the ops side. We don't have time to order new red plates if somebody with a permanent number plate changes the red plate between round 3 and round 4. So like we had to order a full set of red plates and be ready to give it out to whoever takes it. Kind of like a weird little technical thing people probably don't think of. So.
Yeah, and Clay, I'm going to take a minute just to give you a props again, because these are the kinds of things, like you're an athlete and also, you know, promoting the biggest and best downhill series in the United States. And watching how you navigated the lightning and lift situation at Mountain Creek, you were the least popular person for Saturday evening, right? Like you couldn't win with the mountain.
Yeah.
You were lighting up all the mountain staff because you wanted to have contingency plans locked down before the event. And there were issues there where I think you felt let down. And then you were also sort of the ambassador and, you know, person that's got to get all of your customers, i.e. the racers, and we've talked about this over and over again. You're focusing on their racer experience.
Political.
And you were really in, like, we'll call it a shit sandwich, right? And you were the meat in that shit sandwich.
Thanks,
and
Lars.
I remember, like, even just the faces and the vibe from the athletes Saturday night that you managed it, and you ended up pulling off an incredible event. And I think pretty much everybody walked away feeling really good about, you know, the finished product.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and it's just another example thinking about the red plates, right? Like this is a big deal. Like for an athlete, like just having, if you can get that ODI red plate for one event, that's going to be pretty sick. You're going to have those pictures. You're going to be posting them on your socials and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool you're doing that.
The logistics behind it, like I'm not the person that identified that problem. Like that was Jess.
Yeah.
You know, Jess and Jamie working in the background. And man, they're just on it. And Jess was the one who identified that issue. And I was like, nah, it's not a problem. She's like, no, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So we got it fixed.
So big props to the Rockstar team behind you as well.
Yeah. And so just let's put a cap on this and we wanted to just quick hit the men's and women's juniors while we have these screens open. Ryder Lawrence, what can you say? Just, you know, continuing to dominate. I wanted to mention him because, you know, 2 for 2 has a 15-point lead over Fred La Riviere, Outlaw Kid, and Alex and Luke Mallon. Close. Jackson Oney rounding out the top 5. Nobody's that far out. It's all within 20 points. Could be anybody's. But Ryder broke his collarbone.
Will he be back in time?
He's already back. Already back in racing. Fastest recovery I've ever seen. Really interesting. I was worried that he wasn't going to make it back, but he's back. I want to say he's racing in Italy this week. I think he's on the bike again this week. So good for him. And then in the women's category, in the junior women's category, probably of these 4 categories we're discussing, the tightest points race, 6 points between Mary McLaren and Sarah Ligman. And I think you know, Mary taking the win just really put her over the top on that, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 back-to-back rounds there. That category is really evolving pretty quickly. We say it all the time, same with the 15-16 in the women's, and I just have to admit, like, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know these characters well enough. Like, we're all learning this in lifetime, so it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where it's like, all it could take is the difference between first or fifth, between the top 5 athletes is who's got a better head that morning, you know, like who just feels good that morning, whose breakfast agreed with them the best, you know, it's like it's that tight. So.
Yeah, and who has the maturity, right? Like, because racecraft comes with maturity, and you know, to Ryder's credit, like the kid's done a lot of racing. He's raced around the world. He's done a lot of stuff, and as much as sometimes I'll be talking with him and, you know, we're friends, and I'll be like, man, you're a knucklehead. Like, get your head in the game. That kid's processing. That kid's got a plan. You know, his father's a legend, right? Like, Randy Lawrence, RL, like, you know, trained him since he was 3 as a BMX rider and everything. And so, like, there's a really deep, like, subtle racecraft inside that kid that we've seen really come alive in the last 2 rounds. And I'm really excited to see where he goes, you know, for the rest of this season. Hopefully he can hold it together and lock in that championship, because he moves to the pro class next year, you know, so this is his chance. So, and then, you know, just to reiterate, SR Sun Tour whole shot, Isabella Naughton, Erin Gwin, you know, fairly expected with the win, but Isabella, it's always exciting when we see the whole shot not go to the winner. Like, just personally, I love to see it. So cool. And everybody go check that out. YouTube, Pro Downhill Series YouTube. The GCO, the Gravity Co-op race show we put together with them is up. It's live. It's been up for a month and a half. What am I saying? But go check it out. Great coverage.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, really good coverage. So yeah, I think that's probably good for Mountain Creek. And like we said at the beginning of this, we'll be here all day. We got a lot to cover.
Yeah. So it's been interesting because, you know, there's been a lot of racing, Downhill Southeast, the Northwest, the Southwest, the World Cups. There's been definitely a lot of racing, but it feels, you know, like we've taken a little bit of a break, and it's going to be a whirlwind because we're going straight from Solitude right into Big Bear, which is not only round 4, but also the national championships. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that, but let's talk about Solitude first. Brand new venue right near Salt Lake City. So awesome part of the world, very easy to get to, big airport, and within a 40-minute drive, you kind of vaporize out of a city into like some really magical,
you can see the city,
magical, beautiful mountains. We're excited to have a round at a brand new venue. So I know you mentioned you were just out there.
Yep. So I just did a huge road trip. We drove out. We had to pick up a new trailer we bought. We're always working on our equipment and upgrading assets, and that's why we're at the Monster warehouse and stuff. So just made the drive, got back, went immediately to Killington for a site visit. Back here, this podcast, 4th of July at home on the farm, back out to Utah. So the venue, Solitude venue, it's awesome. I love it. I really enjoy being there. That Cottonwood Canyon, the whole place. It's to what you said. It's you don't feel that close to the city. You're there. You're right there. Which I wish every venue had an airport that close, like an international airport. I think that the track is going to be a similar profile to the Mountain Creek track. It's not going to be like it. Obviously, it's going to be dry. It's going to be different, but a similar profile and scale, time, size to the Mountain Creek track. We're starting with, and we'll just dive right into this because there's already the chatter. We put that social post out and there's all this chatter about everybody's got an idea of what we should be doing, but it's hard to get every idea across the table. You're dealing with things like, first of all, budget, timeline, and what you're allowed to do between what the venue wants to do and what the other stakeholders like the National Forest Service and everybody else says you can do. So the plan for this race, well, take one step back. Solitude Bike Park, brand new, opened last year. Don't forget that. This bike park is brand new. There's so much energy inside. Tyler Seitz and Scott Cherry, the ops team behind this thing, those guys have like lit this up. It's huge, and they're so passionate. Their trail crew is amazing. I got to spend some time with those guys out there, and like, it's my favorite thing to do when I go to a venue, right? It's like meet the trail crew, take a few laps with them and hang out, and like, they have it. Like, they have what it takes. They ride, they're excited, there's passion. So what we're doing for this race, so it's a new bike park. They have gone to the top of the Moonbeam Express, which is not the top of their resort. It's the mid mountain, I guess you'd call it. So a bunch of people are saying like, hey, it's not enough altitude, not enough drop. I disagree. I think it's going to be a good race. Look at what we do with Rock Creek. Look at what we do with Mountain Creek. It's not about the vertical drop. It's about the racing.
There's an element of altitude too. I remember racing the World Cup at Telluride, and when I walked the course, I was like, this course is like really short. I'm kind of wish it was longer. And then raced it, and I was like, thank God this course is not longer, because the altitude it definitely plays into it quite a bit.
There's I can't remember the altitude off the top of my head right now, so I'm not going to say the wrong number. I'm mixing it up with Big Bear all the time, but it's similar. And they have a jump trail there called Unleaded. If you're out there like for the race, go ride this jump trail. It's a really fun black jump trail. There's a couple like actual doubles in it, so like pay attention. But I had to stop 3 times every lap. I can't make it. I got to stop and breathe. The locals who are
Jersey boy.
Yeah, the locals who are showing me the track are like, come on, dude. I'm like, please stop.
Say you live at sea level without saying it, right?
I live at like 578 feet. So
it's right about where we are.
Yeah, that's why I feel good. So the track we're starting with there, the trail, what we do, right? We've said this before. We take a trail, we build it into a track. It's called Holy Schist. It's like a bluish, blackish, I forget what it's labeled as, it might be black, single track trail. They've really opened it up. They're breathing a ton of life into this. It, as it stood, was a very, like, I don't know what the right word to use is, slow, not a very slow trail. It was a slower trail with some jank in it. We are turning it into a very fast race trail for this event. Obviously, it'll be returned to its trail status for normal business, which is good because it gives us those special sections and things that you have to race to hit. But the team there is building a motorway at the top. This is a reverse mountain. They own the real estate at the top, so that's where they can do the dirt work. So you come right out of the gate. You see it in our recent Instagram post, like out the gate, a little bit of raw natural, like you walk up from the chairlift, couple hundred feet, get in the start house, which is being built, drop in. It's raw for the first couple hundred yards, and then you hook this left catch, and it's a triple into a whoop section into 2 fast berms and a road gap, like boom, right out the gate. So like when you're riding the chairlift up, this is right under you. It's going to be really cool. And then that goes up and hits the Holy Shish Trail, which then we don't have enough time to go through all the stuff, but there's a ton of changes coming. Don't judge it by what it's been. Come out, see it. It's going to be exciting. A few big changes midway, kind of 2/3 of the way through that I think no one's expecting. You and I talked about this before the podcast. I didn't realize it, but man, there's almost no pedaling in this. Like out the gate, so it's good for the altitude problem. Out the gate, you got to pedal hard. You're gonna have to work on this track. There's a lot of actual like big compressions and grade reversals. So like down, up, down. Obviously not pedal up, but like quick grade reversals. It's gonna be definitely speed management is gonna be important. And then finish line right behind the lodge, right in the venue, pits right there. It's going to be a good setup.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a really
and
good
dirt
setup.
consistency there, because I've not ridden Solitude before. Is it similar to Deer Valley? Is it just typical, like really dry Utah dirt?
Yeah, I would say it's not as dry as you might expect. It's definitely dry, but it's not like Big Bear powder, right? Like Big Bear is a unique, that's a really unique, like deep powder. It sounds like we're talking about skiing, but it's like a deep powder. This isn't quite like that. It's definitely dry, but there's a lot more rocks in it. Yeah, a lot more rocks in it. So, and then some of the nooks and crannies of this track, and it goes along a creek. Could even be some dampness to it.
Yep. Cool.
I hesitate to say there will be, but there could be. And then the venue, like I said, is a great venue layout. The parking's right there. The pits are right there. It is going to be tight with parking. So there will be street parking and stuff like that, and we may end up pushing, right through that. People might end up going down the road towards Brighton to park and stuff like that. But it's like their normal wintertime business. Same scenario. But the reason I mention it is like, get there early, be there for the race, get your spot, and then if you want tents, if you want to do that, hit us up on our bike reg or wherever and get your privateer pit, or if you're a pro team, make sure you're registered to get your pro pit so that you are secure and set up on site, because it's a new venue. Everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's super cool, all the energy with a new venue, but you've also got some additional partners that are local to Salt Lake City, right?
Yeah, good to mention.
Getting behind it as well, supporting the Pro Downhill Series.
Yep, first one is Visit Salt Lake, which is exciting. They came right on board in the beginning. They actually pushed us. They were like, we haven't done this yet. We don't have a partner that does bike racing, because most of it happened up in Park City, and it's kind of a weird geography thing there, but Solitude is actually Salt Lake City, not Park City. But you can take, when you're there, if you're up there for the race, take Guardsman's Pass over to Park City one night. It's awesome drive. It's wild. Do it like cautiously. It's a pretty crazy drive. And so Visit Salt Lake jumped right on, giving us support, promotional support and stuff. I actually usually don't have paper assets for a podcast, but these are all over Salt Lake City. We got them in all the bike shops. Got Nate Kitchen, who unfortunately I don't think is making the race because of a big injury he took, ankle and foot injury he had at Southwest Downhill last week or 2 weeks ago. But Visit Salt Lake on board, and then Uinta Brewing. They've come on board too to support, which is great. Awesome local brewery, great beer. And there'll be a handful of other local brands and some that'll be activating at the event in the pits. So we encourage people at this event to go take a stroll through the pits and see the different brands that are in there. They're not brand partners per se, but they're local brands that are really supporting what we do, which is awesome.
Yeah, super stoked to be there. And Utah is also like I guess we could call it the free ride capital of the United States, So a lot of free ride athletes live in Utah. So,
yeah. Well, Utah's just
we're going to be seeing some.
Yeah. And Utah's just like we said it before. The reason we want to be there, like
it's cool.
It's cool, but I think it could be argued to be one of the top 3 or 5 most important states to mountain biking in the country for producing racers and free riders. But to your point, DJ Brandt, T-Mac, like some of these guys in southern Utah, there's been kind of barking a little that they're coming up to race, which would be cool. Man, I'd love to see DJ Brandt race downhill. That would be sick. I know T-Mac.
Maybe carry a rail in so he could throw something mid-run or something.
We know T-Mac rips, right? Like former racer, U.S. Open racer. And Kyle Strait too, maybe not a Utah resident, but rides for a Utah-based company, RE Bikes. So I believe he'll be there racing downhill, which, dude, I love watching that guy race downhill. Like, he's just a truck coming through the woods so fast. And one last thing to mention, along the lines of like local partners and brands, big shout out to all the bike shops and all the different clubs and everybody involved locally promoting this. Liz Mallon, Luke and Alex's mom, like, whew, she is like out there just like hitting the pavement. We got like a street team, we
That's
got
awesome.
all these posters and postcards. So it's rare that we get that kind of ground game going because there usually isn't such a center, like a city center right next to the venue. So it's worked out really well. From Salt Lake City to Park City, I think everybody knows we're coming.
Awesome. Excited. Yeah, so I guess that should help with course marshals and volunteers and all that stuff as well.
Gosh, we can never not mention that, right? Yes,
I know,
course
we always
marshal
have to
link.
plug it, right?
Course marshal link off the website. Go sign up. Man, we need help always. A lot of cool benefits with that. I'm sure we'll hit it again when we talk about Big Bear, but definitely, please do. And like I always say when people go, what can we do to help? I'm like, subscribe to the YouTube, show up at the races. That's what drives the partnerships. That's what drives our ability to pay higher prize purses and to bring even more elevated content, which ultimately just puts more money in the athletes' pockets, which grows the whole sport. So, yeah, it's going to be good. I'm stoked. I couldn't be more stoked, honestly. And I just want to say thank you to Solitude and Tyler and Scott and Emily and Amy and everybody on that team that's worked tirelessly to make this happen too. They have a really good team there. We'll see you in a couple weeks there, but I think it's time to talk about
Big Bear.
Big Bear.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big one. Big Bear is such an iconic event. I mean, I would argue, we talked about Mountain Creek and how that's kind of established itself as a really well-known downhill venue in the United States, but I would argue that Big Bear is probably even more well-known.
Globally, without a doubt.
Globally, yeah. I mean, that place is so cool. It's just got the killer mountain vibe. You had a round there last year. It went off amazingly well. Just the energy, the industry, the vibe, the scene.
Southern California.
It's all firing on all cylinders. It's so cool.
And it's, to your point in the beginning there, yes, it's a massively important venue. It just wasn't as consistent with races throughout the years as Mountain Creek. Big Bear, Snow Summit, the actual bike park in Big Bear Lake, California, did have a number of years where they didn't host anything. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, I was actually on the way down here to do this podcast listening to the last GCO podcast, GCO Hot Seat, and Grizz and Drew were talking about, first of all, you should go listen to this podcast if you're a racer in our series. They discussed the points in every class, amateur and pro, which was crazy. But they discussed the Snow Summit, and Grizz said that this was like a long time coming because it's hosted Norba Nationals, it's hosted a World Cup, but it never hosted national champs, which it was kind of an interesting way to look at it because I'm always thinking about the big races it hosted. So this is kind of a final game for them. Like they've done everything, but they haven't done this. So.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. It's not only round 4 of the Pro Downhill Series, but it's also the national championship. So
correct.
We brought on board Justin Evans, the
Justin.
national events manager for USA Cycling.
Correct.
And I think there's a lot of questions here. How is the event going to run? Because it's not just Pro Downhill Series, but it's also US National Champs. So welcome to the podcast, Justin. Thanks
welcome,
for joining
Justin.
us.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Stoked to see you, man. Yeah. It's you and I spend a lot of time working in the background on a lot of different stuff, not even just this event. So
phone calls, videos, and it seems like when we get on site at events, it's over before you know it. So
yeah, Justin and I have worked together for many years. So I think that's like the best place to start with this, right? It's like, how did this come to be? Like, what are we doing exactly? I think that the, first thing to do is probably just lay out the architecture of it, right? So like, it's a Pro Downhill Series event. It's Pro Downhill Series stop number 4 at Big Bear Lake, California. The point series and the racing for the Pro Downhill Series, all that will function exactly as it does at every other round. But we're also overlaying USA Cycling National Championships on this, meaning that we will be handing out the national championship medal, the sleeves, etc. So that's a little confusing, right? Like there's definitely been some
Yeah, I
stuff
think
going
that-
around. I don't think everybody necessarily understands that.
A lot of the questions that I'm hearing from people just kind of on the street is, well, how is that going to work? Because some juniors may be racing pro, and some...
You got that. You got two biggest ones I keep hearing, right? Which we should just address right off the bat. Like we said, we're going to do this. The double header. It's not really a double header. It's one race run. It is one race. There's two sets of results, if you will. And so what that means is that basically the fastest American on the day will be the national champ. And I'll let Justin maybe dive into that a little bit more. Like, it's open to foreigners, right, Justin? Like,
Yep.
just like Pro Downhill Series, everybody can race it.
Yep, no different than any other Pro Downhill Series event or really any other event around the world. It's open to anybody who holds a license that has that annual full year-long license, whether it's from the United States or another federation. So it is just a standard Pro Downhill Series event, but then the fastest person who has the ability to wear the sleeve and win that jersey on the day stands on that second podium. So there's an opportunity for the Pro Downhill Series podium to be the exact same as the National Championships podium, but it also has the ability to be two separate podiums with different people.
Correct, right? So like, yeah, to put it in a real life scenario, if a Canadian comes and races in our pro class race and they get second place, they're second place in the Pro Downhill Series, they're on the podium, they're getting the check for the Pro Downhill Series race. But when we then line up the top Americans, that result would be void of that. The American in third would technically be the second fast American on the day. That one in first would get the sleeve. If that Canadian racer we're discussing were to win the race, the fastest American, who may be in second place, would technically be the national champion and get the sleeve. That's correct, right?
That is correct. Yeah, we would have two separate podiums, one podium for all Pro Downhill Series athletes, and then one podium for only those eligible for the national championship.
You know, for people who love the story of sport and rules and things like that, there's a few really little weird gotcha technical things with national champs through the sanctioning body that even I've had to learn. But maybe we should take a step back and talk about how it came to be this, right? So national championships, maybe give us just like a quick history. It happens in every discipline. Historically, it's something that USA Cycling has owned and operated. Want to give a quick breakdown on that so everybody knows like where this started and where it came from.
Yeah, so we'll talk about just mountain bike in general, and then I'll go to a more generalized conversation here in a minute. But when you look specifically at mountain bike, up until 2012, not including Norba days, we used to run a gravity national championship, which was only our downhill dual slalom events, and we ran an endurance only event. Starting in 2013, I believe it was, at Mammoth Lakes out in California. So this will be the first time that USA Cycling has returned back to California for, I believe, any national championship outside of track down in Los Angeles. But starting there in 2013 in Mammoth, we had the combined national championships where we were running 6 days long, hellaciously long events for staff, riders, and everybody involved. And that ran all the way through, it would have been after Winter Park. So after we left Winter Park in 2022, USA Cycling made the decision to split those events back apart. So we ran an endurance national championships at one venue, and then a endurance in one venue and gravity in another. And what that allowed was having priorities placed where they belonged in both events. So the endurance events could go to endurance specific venues and gravity events could go to gravity specific events. So for that 2-year cycle, we were at Ride Rock Creek, which many of you guys probably had the opportunities to race. And we definitely got good reports from the courses as Pro Downhill Series. You've raced those events the last 2 years, I believe, at Ride Rock Creek. So after that event happened, we brought Clay on for the second year as our race director, and those conversations kept progressing. And we decided that, you know what, we are not professional race directors. We're not experts in the gravity field. Let's actually bring on people who know the sport, who are considered world-class race directors in that specific discipline, and let's just give them the opportunity to host the national championships. So for anybody who does enduro and was up in Kellogg, Idaho a couple of weeks ago, same concept. So we gave the Enduro National Championships to the North American Enduro Cup, had raving reviews.
I heard it was a great event. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
Everybody had a fantastic time. No timing issues, no course issues. Everybody just was thoroughly impressed. That
that's
said,
arguably one of the best enduro events in the country, hands
sure.
down, prior to being national champs. I mean, that's such a prestigious event.
So that was where that conversation kind of originated from, and where it's gone to, and that's what we wanted to do with Gravity as well. So USA Cycling partnered with Clay in the Pro Downhill Series to host, again, not the double header, but a 2 races in 1 run type event for the Pro Downhill Series and national championships out at Snow Summit and Big Bear. And it will be actually nice going back. We have had an opportunity to have a national championship there before, but it was only for collegiate. So I believe it was 2021. We did have our collegiate mountain bike national championships there for all disciplines. And that was a very quick replacement event after we had the fires out in Durango where they were supposed to be held. So it'll be nice going back for me, but I believe this is our first time that we've ever had our elite downhill national champions racing at Snow Summit and back in California since we raced in Mammoth.
Yeah. And thank you for the props there. This was a long time coming. You know, I've said it before publicly and I'll say it now. I started my racing career fiercely independent, anti-sanctioning. US Open 2003 was, crazy. And through the journey of bringing USA Cycling on board with a partnership for US Open was the first step in this. And that started back in 2018. And really what brought us together was developing pathways for the youth racers, like to create that whole process of how do we get more high-level youth racing, right? And that's what we came together on, et cetera. And then we started working together on this national champs when USA Cycling was still running it. But I think that the plan we have this year is really good. I think that we'll probably have a few hiccups. There'll probably be some confusion, a little bit here and there. Every time you do something new, it's going to be like that. But I think that we have the right people involved. Justin, you specifically, your knowledge of the rules is crazy. Honestly, I don't know anybody who knows them like you. So I wanted to ask a few questions, right? Like some eligibility stuff and some of the dirt, A
couple that come to mind, I think, is Justin, you mentioned anyone with an annual license. So at the Pro Downhill Series, there is a path for somebody to get a temporary license if they just want to do one event for the whole year. How would that work? Are riders still eligible to show up?
Hold on. I think that that question is the second part of a first part question, which is, so at this race, there's going to be people racing Pro Downhill Series, and then there will be a percentage of the athletes also competing for the national championship. So let's take a step back before we talk about the impact of the need for a license, because I think the first part of the question would answer that. Who's competing at, when you come to this Pro Downhill Series event, what athletes are competing for national championships in their categories?
Yep. So overall, within a standard Pro Downhill Series race, there's Pro and Cat 1 level athletes, and then there are Cat 2, 3 level athletes. And we did whatever we could to maintain the integrity of the Pro Downhill Series and to make it pretty simple. A Cat 2, 3 level athlete is considered a non-championship event. It's just a standard Pro Downhill Series level event. But those athletes in categories have no opportunity to win a sleeve. They are just the amateur level Category 2, Category 3 event. And Lars, to touch on the licensing perspective, those athletes, they technically can race on a one day in that Cat 2, 3 level field. Yep. When you look into the categories that are eligible for sleeves, those are going to be your Cat 1 and Pro level fields. Those 99% of the time there is an experienced one day that can come into play, but that would not offer an opportunity for a sleeve. But let's just leave that kind of on the table and not discuss the experience.
Let's just say if you're going for a sleeve, this shouldn't be the one and only race you do of the damn year.
Exactly. But in all reality, you would have to have an annual license to win a national championship. While you may be eligible to race the Pro Downhill Series on an experienced one day, I would have that information. You're not going to be eligible for a sleeve if you try to just race on that more expensive experienced one day. So for all intents and purposes, the Cat 1 and Pro level categories, you have to have that international or domestic license to be eligible. And when you look at who is in that Pro Downhill Series field, you could have international athletes, you could have just Americans in that field. So when you're looking at that combined field, the athletes who are actually eligible are going to be in all categories outside of the 17 plus pro. It can be any athlete who has United States citizenship or U.S. permanent residency, otherwise known as a green card.
And is racing Cat 1 or Pro.
And is racing Cat 1 or Pro. That is correct. So with green cards or a passport or U.S. citizenship, an athlete outside of that pro, the 17 plus pro field is eligible for the national championship. When you look at the 17 plus category, that is the results that we submit to the UCI. That's the sleeve that you potentially...
Hold on a second. Let's take pause.
Yeah.
You're going too deep for the average person. Two things I want to add. First of all, we didn't say what a sleeve is, right? We got audience that we have audience that might not even know what that means. So national championship is historically a one-day race that decides who gets to say they are the, quote, national champion. There's a national series, which is the Pro Downhill Series. You are the national series overall champion. And you also, we crown a national champ, the guy that won or the woman that won on the day that was the national championship race. Very similar to world championships, very similar. And so the sleeve is you get the right to wear a red, white, and blue sleeve like the flag when you compete, and only one person in each category in Cat 1 gets that, and one pro, one male and female. Very high honor. In the U.S., national championships is the longest running, highest distinction. Arguably, U.S. Open is a very high distinction too, but it's not as long running, and it doesn't give you any signifying national, like a sleeve, like a title, a sleeve. Yeah, you're just the champion of that particular race. So it's a very important, it is arguably the most prestigious win in the United States. And I think, defining those two things is important. And then I wanted to stop you because I know what you're about to go in, and I'm not going to lie, I don't even fully understand this. Every time it comes up, I have to ask Justin about this. This is the craziest, old nuances in the rule. And just dude, if you're a fan of sport, whether it's golf or football or whatever, it's the weird little things in the storybook and little rule ticks that make, that's what makes this.
All right, so now I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I want to hear the punchline.
It's just we ran into this issue. And so to give the backstory before I let Justin unload with the technicalities is, myself and a few other people, Justin included, we worked to clarify what it means to be a pro in the United States, because we're building Pro Downhill Series to be a series people can have a career in. We're paying prize money, and we saw an influx of junior athletes that were dominating. Asa Vermette, Aletha, two of the biggest names, and a handful more. And we clarified, we thought we had to change the rules. We only clarified the rules a couple years back that they are eligible to race as pro in the United States. The UCI does not recognize them at other races around the world, per se, as pro, because in other series and other UCI-dominated series particularly, they go by age. We go by ability, and we allow someone at 15 or whatever, if they can make it, if they meet the qualifications and the sanctioning body, USA Cycling says yes, they can be pro, they get to race pro in Pro Downhill Series. The national championship is regulated by UCI as well as USA Cycling. So similar to round one at Rock Creek, we are going to run what we call that super final, where everybody, 17, 18 plus pro, are running in a field together. And typically speaking, you would pull out your junior champion and your pro champion. But with our underage pros, it just gets wildly confusing. So I'll let Justin explain, like, why don't you just give a few quick scenarios where it could be like crazy, like if, if Asa won, or if a 15-year-old won, or whatever, right? Like, explain how that is going to be confusing. And it's good we talk about it, because people will bitch if they don't understand it ahead of time. Like, people will be like, "Oh, that's messed up," and I'm like, "It's just confusing," is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those unfortunate scenarios that we continue to try to change, and until the UCI creates, and they've taken a step, in my opinion, in the right direction with the creation of the Continental Series this year, which we ran in Rod Rock Creek, where they had a standalone 17-18 category and a standalone 19 plus category. But still, outside of Continental Series, World Series events, and World Championships, the idea of a 17, 18-year-old in downhill technically doesn't really exist. They're always considered the 17 plus category. So if you ever go to just a standard UCI event like Mountain Creek has been in the past, where the elite category was a 17 plus, that's where this idea comes from. So it was only national championships and those above where you could have this standalone 17, 18 race. But one, I think, other important aspect, just talking about the eligibility before I go into those weird specifics, Clay, is where you can have a permanent resident racing and winning a national championship in those amateur categories. You can't have a permanent resident racing and winning the sleeve in the 17 plus UCI race. So to be eligible for that particular category, you have to be a U.S. citizen and what we consider USA racing nationality. In layman's terms, what that means is the ability to represent the United States at a world championships. So an athlete could have dual citizenship. So you could have Canadian and United States citizenship at the same time. You can have two passports, not a problem at all. But what you have to do is actually select which country you are representing at that first takeout of the license. So if I am an athlete who holds dual citizenship and I select I want to represent the United States, I'm eligible. But if I want to hold my U.S. passport and say, you know what, I'd actually prefer to race for Canada, that's fine. But just because you are a U.S. citizen doesn't mean you're eligible for that 17 plus national championship.
This is to keep people from claiming they're from Antarctica to get into a national championship or a world championship.
It's not necessarily that. It's more of just making sure. And we actually had this issue come up in cyclocross, actually, about 5 years ago. An athlete who holds dual citizenship in both the United States and Argentina, she was allowed into our cyclocross national championships, into the pro women's field. No one actually knew it, but her racing nationality was with Argentina. We had selected her to our world championships roster. And then the UCI came and said, that's not acceptable. She doesn't race for you. She's actually Argentinian. And that's where it became a big issue of making sure we ensure that that all riders who are racing for these UCI national championships are, in fact, eligible. I'm not from athletics. I don't know if this particular event is a World Championships selection event. But if it were, a lot of times that winner does receive an automatic nomination to the World's Championships team. So that's why you want to ensure that it does, in fact, the winner is actually eligible. And we would never want somebody on a podium who isn't actually eligible. So that was that last piece of just true eligibility in terms of citizenship or residency that comes into play as to who is actually eligible to win. So now, the fun part. Lars, I know you're on the edge of your seat over there. I see you shaking a little bit. So when we look back at 2024, it was the perfect case scenario, the perfect storm, which I think is a really cool place for the United States to be. The young man, Asa, who at the time we were considering what happens if Asa wins. Asa is likely going to win the junior 17-18 title, but what happens if Asa wins the 17 plus UCI category? Well, to not bore anybody, I'm just going to read specifically from our eligibility document, which is we put together to try to help everybody just know exactly what the rules state. And this is coming directly from the UCI regulations, but it says, in the event a junior 17-18 rider records the fastest overall time, the junior rider would be awarded the elite and junior national championship jersey, but only the elite rider, meaning the elite jersey, would be recognized by the UCI. So what that means in Asa's case from last year, fortunately, he went on in Andorra to win the world championship. So it kind of became irrelevant because he's the junior world champion. So his sleeve would never have been worn anyway. But what that means is if when Asa won last year and he had not then proceeded to win the world championships, when Asa shows up to a World Cup race, Asa is the technically United States junior champion and technically the United States elite champion. But because the UCI has the specification, he's not able to wear the junior sleeve because he's not the junior champion in the UCI. He's only the elite champion. So if he goes to race the 17-18 World Cup, Asa just races in his Frameworks jersey. He doesn't get any special sleeves unless he's the World Cup overall.
Basically what happens is if a junior wins the fastest time of the day, we're in a situation where we almost don't have a national championship, national champion in the pro class recognized outside of the United States. So it's like almost like a coup. If somebody who's under 19 wins that 17 plus category, it's a weird scenario. It puts us in a point where like there will be no one at World Cup wearing a sleeve. It's a very interesting scenario and very rare. It doesn't come up.
But it is very rare for sure.
When it did come up, it was like dramatic. Everybody was upset, was surprised and upset about it, and it's crap. But it's not our rule. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. So I think that we stand a really good chance of seeing that happen again.
Yep.
So
and that could happen
both men's and women's.
In men and women's field.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good problem to have. It's just unfortunate where we do have to play by the rules of the UCI when it comes to seeing these events on TV, specifically the World Cups and the World Championships. So when we're looking at it and when we get to race day, it's going to be treated no differently than the Continental Champion or the Continental Series event in Riderick Creek was held. One big mega finals as we've all kind of, or super finals as we've called it in the past. But everybody's going to have that one seeding run. Everybody's going to have that one finals run. And in the event a 17 or 18-year-old is the fastest time of the day, they will stand on technically 3 podiums. They will stand on the Pro Downhill Series podium as the winner. They will stand on the 17-18 podium as the winner and receive our jersey. And they will stand on the elite podium and receive our jersey. But let's say that Asa or another 17, 18-year-old isn't the fastest, but the second or third fastest time of the day. That's kind of best case scenario because you then have...
It's not let's just call it simplest case scenario.
Best case to explain scenario. Yeah, not in terms of best because that would be unfortunate for Asa but or any other athletes. But the simplest scenario... So what happens there? So let's say Asa, prime example, gets second on the day in the Pro Downhill Series. Asa is now on the Pro Downhill Series podium in second place. Asa was the fastest junior of the day, so he's now winning the national championship in his world championship sleeves, in his on top wrist of the ski. Let's back up here. He wins the junior 17-18.
I like it when he actually confuses himself because then I don't feel so bad.
I confused myself. It's easy. So he would then be the 17-18 winner, but for that elite podium, he is now still that second place finisher. So we don't replace him off the podium by the next best elite. So that elite 17 plus podium is still maintained. It still stays the same, but that 17-18 podium would then only be 17-18-year-olds first, second, and third. And that winner would be the junior national champion, and we would have a separate elite national champion. So we could theoretically then have, or we would then realistically have 2 sleeves in a World Series event. Mm-hmm. The 17-18
a junior and a pro
on the junior, and then the elite.
Yeah, it could be a very common situation, I think, to see that, where the junior now getting to race in this 17 plus class may make it in the top 5 and make the podium, not likely win, but then they do win the junior championship. Like that's probably historically speaking a pretty common experience.
That's definitely more common. And for those of you guys that are familiar with, I believe it was Pinkerton. So Ryan Pinkerton was in that situation in 2024. 2023 at Red Rock Creek. And that's
when he sat in the hot seat for like
when he sat in
an
the
hour
hot
and a
seat
half.
for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a long time.
And
And the hot seat was a tractor in the sun.
It was a literal hot seat that day. And that's where we made sure to have these conversations to ensure that we were running this event in a super finals scenario. So it was fair and it was realistic for that top athlete, because what you could always have is, we know we're racing in an open environment. What happens if we run the 17-18s first and then all the elites for the integrity of the 17-18 field and the 19 plus field, and the weather changes?
Yeah.
Well, now you have the separated break. So it's always easiest and a best plan to run them together in this 17 plus field.
Yep. And this is a compromise that we made at Pro Downhill Series. Like we said, for Rock Creek and for national champs, we would combine the two classes on the dirt and then separate them in results. And the reason is because we need to get these 3 sets of results out of the, well, 2 sets of results out of this super final. And then to kind of clarify, because you went fast over this, we didn't do that with Pinkerton. So Pinkerton raced in a separate junior class and then had to come back out and sit on the hot seat in the pro class and smoked 90% of the field.
He finished 4th.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly,
yeah.
he finished
So
4th.
he had to sit there until you got to the 3rd place seating pro, and everybody's sweating it. And if it had started raining, everybody would have been like, what the heck? Like, this guy got to race in dry, and then he's sitting on our podium, and we raced in the wet. So as long and drawn out as that explanation was, the reason I wanted to do this was give that real life example. And like, if you're a mountain biking fan and you're into racing, like, you can understand that. Like, that's crazy. So like, while this seems like we are off the rails, we're actually really trying to correct 2 things and bring them together: Pro Downhill Series and national champs. Like, do the best we can do for everybody and create the fairest race on the day.
Yeah, I think you guys explained it pretty well. I mean, I actually understood it. I don't know if I could articulate it back as smoothly as you just did, but I get it. So just shifting gears a little bit, because that scenario that you just described, it's super important, and it's going to, if it happens, create a lot of buzz like it did at Rock Creek and Ride Rock Creek. And people are going to, because they didn't understand, be like, what the heck is going on? And then once they understand, they'll be like, okay, so now like we have a much better shot because the precedent, there's an analog already that we.
And side note, Lars is the guy on the mic who will have to be describing this as it happens in the corral. So,
but I think to the masses, like national champs, there's a lot of people that they probably don't care as much about this. So I think there's some questions there, right? Mm-hmm. So not only is it national champs, so we understand the licensing, you need to have an annual license, but I'm kind of thinking about, like, it's going to be at, Snow Summit, Big Bear Lake, California.
Ooh, good question coming up.
There's a lot of, like, legends of the sport, right? So you might have guys that are 40 years old, 50 years old.
Let's just name 2. You got Brian Lopes and Joe Lawwell.
Yeah,
Let's just name
Brian
2 that
Lopes,
are
Joe
talking
Lowell,
some shit
Eric
about coming
Carter,
out.
They're all in Southern California. Rich Houseman, I would love to see out there. I mean, there's a lot of talented riders that are still on their bikes getting after it.
Yeah.
They might want to just show up. So as long as they buy an annual license, they could race Cat 1, which the names we just mentioned are not racing Cat 2, 3. They're eligible, right? They don't need to do any other events other than have an annual license and be registered as a Cat 1 rider, correct?
Yep. So anything over the age of 30. So this is one thing where USA Cycling had to make a little bit of compromise on what our regulations call for, and the Pro Downhill Series had to make some compromises on what their normal series are. But with the Masters 30 plus, those are typically run as just standard Cat 1 level events. But what we've come up with is a scenario where if there is a athlete who still has a pro card, whether that's the Brian Lopes and he holds that pro card, or he's chosen to downgrade, or an athlete who's typically racing the pro series category in the Pro Downhill, that athlete can now actually what we'll call single day downgrade to the Masters category. So if I'm a 35-year-old pro, I'm going to be racing in the 35 to 39, but I normally race in the pro category, and I'm wanting to race for my 35 to 39-year-old sleeve because we do run 5-year age groups. That athlete can do a single day downgrade, and I put it in quotes because their license isn't changing, but we will move them into the I believe it's a 35 to 39, or it may be a 30 to 39 category on the schedule. But that athlete
30 to 39 category, yeah.
30 to 39. Okay. So that 35-year-old who's racing 35 to 39 in our national championships would be eligible to race in that 30-plus category on that day and that day only.
That's cool.
That athlete can, if they're the fastest down the mountain, win the national championship jersey or sleeve. But what they will not earn is Pro Downhill Series points.
Because they'll be racing in a completely different time, in a completely different class. Unlike where we combine the 17 and 18 with the Pro, because that is the mass. Like, that's the glut of, like, career riders. For this level, you have to make a choice. So a guy like Brian, like, let's just use a former pro who's not racing all the races in the series, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
But if you are chasing the pro points, which when we look through it, I don't think there's many people over 30 chasing
There might have been
points.
5.
Yeah, or even really in the hunt. So, you know, Gwyn's not gonna go race masters. So, like, they would have to give up the Pro Downhill Series points from that race. And the reason they were doing that,
throwing a 0 for that round.
The reason they would be doing that is simply because they will literally be racing a different day. Saturday night.
Well, I could think of a number of riders that might be willing to do that because it's good for your resume.
And they're not in the hunt. You're better off getting the national. You're better off getting the national championship than you are saying you got 18th in the points of the series or whatever it is.
So just being, you know, this is how my brain works. Like, if I'm showing up to Big Bear as a rider, my brain is basically saying, register, do your race run, cool, done.
Yeah.
That's all I got to think about, right?
Yeah,
like, so you don't need to think all the stuff like, where's my points going to go? It's good to know this up front because you know where to register. Do you want to register if you're an older person, like register as a master, register as a pro, if you have that scenario or you have both. But really, all you need to know as a rider is register for the race in the category you want to pursue, do your race run, and all the other stuff's going to be handled on the back end. Like us, the team and USA Cycling will figure out, you know, your national championship.
Totally. And if you have questions,
or your Pro Downhill Series points.
Yeah, and if you have questions, answer them. Yeah. Come to us. We'll send you to Justin if need be, whatever it is, because this stuff is confusing. Yeah. But to your point, if you are racing, just show up and race. Like, it'll be sorted. It'll all be sorted. And even if you got pre-registered for the wrong category, we can fix it on site before you start racing, before you drop in, you know.
And I think the most important thing for those athletes that are typically racing that 30 to 39 Cat 1, well, why is that fair to, or that's unfair to me? Well, that's going to affect my overall series. Well, no, we've made the understanding that if that pro athlete downgrades simply for the national championship, they will not actually appear in the Pro Downhill Series results. So the Pro Downhill Series podium itself will be unaffected. That athlete would only be in that category simply for the national championship.
Correct.
And that's correct, right, Clay?
Yeah, and so, like, understanding that, it's like, you know, with the negative space, like, who would be the people that would be, it's the people who aren't even in part of this. It's the other guys in the 30 to 39 who are going to be like, what the hell's going on? So, again, to the rule book, understand it. Talk to Justin, talk to us. We'll try to explain it the best we can ahead of time. You know, I mean, so people know. So. And
the other thing that, I mean, just from a spectator and Big Bear, I mean, last year we saw Mike Metzger come out. We saw Colin Morrison.
Metzger's racing again.
Which is cool. It would be awesome if we saw, like, Colin Morrison come out again, just like some sort of like legends from other two-wheel disciplines. So
snowboarders,
we can still make that happen, right, Clay? I mean, if you wanted to do a legends class, it's not going to be separate from national
Correct.
champs,
Yeah.
But we could do it.
Yep, similar to what we do at US Open when we ran our slope style class. Like, they're for all intents and purposes, they're a Cat 3 class, but that's not the front side of it. The front side of it is we call it a slope style class, and they have to get their one-day license, and they go out and they do a race, just like anybody else. We make a show out of it, but that's within the rules.
Yeah.
But did I just hear Shaun White's coming to Gravity Nationals? That's pretty cool.
I don't think that's what he said.
Darn.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, look, case in point, you know, it's Southern California. There's a lot of athletes. Freestyle motocross,
Whoa.
It's a hotbed.
Maybe it'd be Sean Palmer, not Shaun White.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So awesome. I mean, that was really good because I think it added a ton of clarity to a pretty confusing situation.
We've been talking for weeks or months even about getting you on because we try to discuss this stuff amongst ourselves, and we just are like, whoa, we lose it. We can't get can't get to the bottom of all this. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm always happy to chat. I mean, it's something I've lived and breathed for 10 years with USA Cycling, and I know there's a lot of bad connotations to the organization as a whole, but I think the one thing that I like to say is there's people like me out there who are happy and willing to talk about it and want to work with people like Clay and others in the sport that are willing to go above and beyond and do what's necessary to ensure the sport continues to grow in the right way. We're not always perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but I think this is definitely one of the pieces that we're doing really good right now, which is working with the experts in the field to let them do their own thing and ensure that the athletes get the best experience and not just force them to play by our rules.
It's a massive step. I mean, big props to you, Justin, because it's usually the people that don't really know all the behind the scenes. You're quick to make judgments, but even just putting all of this information out there, I think is going to help a lot, because then people, once they appreciate just how much thought and energy goes into providing like an A+ product for them, that kind of takes away some of that animosity and the quick finger pointing. So,
yeah, and you make rules exciting, Justin.
I try. It is what I'm good at.
But what you do, I will say what you do, and people can experience this on site. You'll be at national champs. Is you don't back away from any conversation. And people may not always like what they hear when it comes to rules. That's no different than getting pulled over by a cop for when you don't disagree with the speed limit, right? Like, it is what it is. This is what it is. We have to have rules. We have to have this. But I find two things. One, it's great that you do that and that you will stand out there with athletes and explain to them the answers to their questions. And then almost always when people realize the depth of information and the depth of factors that go into most of these decisions, they're like, oh, all right, that makes sense. Usually that's the outcome. It's like, all right, well, I guess, I was opposed to this rule, but that makes sense. How else would we do it, right? I could say, personally, I don't love the UCI influence on this. We've worked really hard as a sanctioning body to breathe a whole new life into downhill in this country. And we've made some things, some decisions that we know are right for this community of racers, such as 15, 16, 17-year-old pro upgrades and all that stuff. And it really works well with our run of show and our athlete development and their careers and prize money and all that. But it's an old system. We're pretty new. The UCI and the national championship integration and all of this, it's 30, 40 years old, and changes will come slowly and things will continue to develop. Right now, I'm just really happy that we're all in the sandbox playing and everything's working and it's all coming together nicely. That's my take on all of it.
Yeah. We've often heard just, the keyboard warriors are talking about a renaissance of US downhill, and the collaboration that you two are kind of paving the road ahead is what it's going to take. So awesome.
I think just in general, the place that US mountain biking is in right now, and it's not only this sport within downhill, it's endurance as well, but the place that we're in, there's a lot of positive momentum on both sides, both the gravity and endurance-based sports, that we'd be stupid to not take advantage of it as much as we can. And that's not me speaking for USA Cycling. That's me speaking for everybody in the sport just as a whole, because I love being able to turn on the TV and watch our athletes, Asa, Aletha, Luca, all of these other guys and gals that are racing at a very high level. And it's very fun to be able to watch and not just, oh, what's the American finishing this? Oh, they finished 37th. Why did I even turn it on? It's nice to be able to have a breath of fresh air and a really consistent level of athlete. And what that's due to is people like Clay, series like the Pro Downhill Series, who are willing to go above and beyond, put their necks on the line, and try to push the status quo and do what's necessary to keep growing the sport. Because at the end of the day, USA Cycling is a group of about 50 people who work around the country who aren't professional race directors. And that includes our athletic staff. So what we have to rely on is people like Clay and others in the country that are willing to put these events on, speak for what they feel is right, even if it's against what our regulations call for. A prime case example of that is the 14 and unders, where we've given them their own race, their own Cat 1 field, because that is where these kids are being given an opportunity to progress out of their Cat 2, 3 level and and have that opportunity to race the pro tracks, to be given an opportunity to get better at that age. So when they get to the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old level, they are the aces and the Alethas and all these other kids that are just absolutely phenoms in the sport. And that's compliments directly to Clay and his team. So thanks,
and not just me, everybody, dude, the whole team, all the regional,
team.
The regional race directors too, from Downhill Southeast to Southwest to Northwest to Eastern States Cup to the Rockies, everybody. Like there's a lot of people doing this. Sometimes I'm just the squeaky wheel. That's it. So.
Not just sometimes, buddy.
All right. Oh, I think the connection's getting bad. We're gonna have to get rid of Justin. No,
well, I mean, just those were great comments. I think maybe good like closing comments. Do you have anything else that you'd want to share, Justin, before we wrap up this podcast?
No, I don't think much. Looking forward to spending a couple of days out in California. I love to visit, but I don't want to stay. So I'll be out there pretty much all week. I'll be wearing either this standard blue USA Cycling shirt. And just kind of so everybody else knows, I'm not one of the USA Cycling officials, so I won't be in a light blue shirt. But I do come at it from a staffing and operation standpoint. So if you have any questions about USA Cycling just in general, I'm the person, and if I don't have the answer, I can absolutely find it for you. And all I ask for the athletes and everything is just be willing to give USA Cycling just in general a chance. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work, and don't hesitate to ask the question or even vent. I'm a good vent session
Careful what
listener.
You wish for.
But at the end of the day, we can only continue to do the small strides that we're allowed to do. So we keep taking those small steps forward. We might take a small step back, but all we can do is keep pushing forward and hope everybody is on that same train with both me, Clay, USA Cycling in general, and all the other race directors around the country that are doing what we can.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate all your work and the unbelievable partnership, and look forward to seeing you out at these next couple events.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. We'll catch up.
Absolutely, guys. You guys take care, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
I'm sure you and I will be talking very soon before that. So.
Sounds good. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Let's wrap this up. Last closing minutes on Big Bear. So obviously, same call for volunteers as usual. Same call for course marshals. And if you want to help support the Pro Downhill Series, what do you need to do?
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. All that stuff. And the on-site, like you say. The course marshal thing will be open for that. We do, like last year, I know we did have a little bit of a hard time getting the numbers we needed for course marshals in California. So please share that. Please help support if you can. Help us find somebody. If you have questions about it, hit us up. Let us know. We really appreciate the support there. That one's huge. The racing needs that. And then big shout out to Visit Big Bear Lake. The Visitors Bureau in Big Bear Lake, California is hugely behind this event. They've worked for a couple years with us to work on this process. It's a three-way partnership between Snow Summit, Pro Downhill Series, and Visit Big Bear, and they're really excited to host everybody. Awesome. It's a pretty impressive initiative on their part. They're even hosting that same weekend. There will be Tour to Big Bear, which is this road event that's it's not a race, it's like a big what do they call those, Grand Fondo style event. So there's going to be just the whole town overtaken by cyclists and bikers the whole weekend, and we're hoping a lot of those people who are there to go on those rides are coming up to watch the finals on Saturday night. And the other thing that we didn't mention, which is crazy because we're so downhill oriented, is dual slalom. Don't forget, this is Dual Slalom National Champs 2. Registration's open for that if you're an athlete. That'll be Thursday and Friday of the week if you're a fan, want to come out and see it. A lot more about that, like in the registration. Go to our website, prodownhillseries.com, and you can find all that stuff. Sweet.
So love it. Lots of good stuff.
Too much.
Yeah, and
this was a long one. We wanted to keep it short, but we brought a rules guy on, and you can't abbreviate rules.
Yeah, but hey, it's all good. So everybody out there, we can't wait to see you at Solitude and Big Bear. Thank you for joining us today. Clay, awesome as usual. Let's go racing.